Hello, I'm Beth Shepard. I'm an Ottawa-based visual artist, environmentalist, and animal advocate. In this video, I talk about the plight of the American eel and present the behind-the-scenes steps in the production of Flow, Recruitment and Escapement, a large printed hanging panel I made this summer. For the last 3 years, I've focused my artistic attention on the Ottawa River, the urban water system, the shoreline, the horizon, and the wildlife. My interest in eels was first piqued when I saw an Ottawa riverkeeper appeal to save the American eel. The once numerous snake-like fish important to Indigenous peoples and the settlers of the region has now been almost entirely extirpated. While the watershed remains comparatively free of pollution and commercial fishing, the problem is caused by the hydroelectric dams all along the Ottawa River and its tributaries. These block young eels moving upstream, and the turbines kill or injure many of the sexually mature females making their way downstream. I will admit that until I read this information I really never thought about eels, but I am concerned about any potential species loss, especially in my own backyard. When I talk to people about the plight of the eel, most people say they did not even know there were eels in the Ottawa River and are as disturbed as I am about their potential loss. I realized that my art could be an important vehicle for starting difficult environmental conversations. I started working on eels as a subject in 2021 when I created a small dry point of an imagined meeting of 4 eels in the Ottawa River. In early 2022, I used eels as a subject in some monotype prints. Eels caught up was a perfect subject for a reduction form of monotype printmaking in black and white. My Yellow Eels diptych comprises 2 monotype prints imagining young adult eels living in an idyllic freshwater habitat. In the spring of 2022, members of the Ottawa-Gatineau Printmakers Connective began working on a group project exploring the theme of migration, a highly relevant subject given the increased human migrations in response to global political, economic, and climatic conditions. Less visible are the disruptions of the natural migratory patterns of many species, resulting from habitat loss, climate change, and other anthropogenic factors. I felt my work on the American eel would fit right in. The American eel exhibits what is called a reproductive pattern of migration linked to their spawning cycles. The eels spend their adult life in fresh water, then a decade or more later return to the Sargasso Sea as silver eels, that is, sexually mature adults, to spawn and die. Silver eels from the Ottawa River watershed were once among the largest and most productive of the mature females. Their extirpation has no doubt been a contributing factor to the overall species decline. These types of migration patterns have developed over millions of years to ensure the resources necessary for survival, but this life-ensuring behavior has now become a threat in the age of the Anthropocene. For the Connective Migration Project, I wanted to make some larger, high-impact pieces that would incorporate my research and visually draw attention to the plight of the American eel. The first one I made was Making It to the Red List triptych. In 2017, the American eel was classified as endangered by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature because of a precipitous drop in adult eel populations. Reusing my dry point plate I mentioned earlier, I made impressions overrolled with 3 strong colors to portray the IUCN states of least concern in green, threatened in yellow, to endangered in red. I began work on Flow, Recruitment and Escapement, a large 8 by 3 foot hanging panel, in May of 2022. Flow is a calligraphic print impressed from a single plate with Akua inks interspersed with elements of frottage and chincolle. The work imagines young adult yellow eels and mature silver eels passing in the river. Yellow eels enter freshwater habitats, making their way upstream in a process called recruitment, to use the technical term. There they remain swimming, feeding, hibernating, and growing until they reach sexual maturity, often decades later. In a process called escapement, sexually mature females, now black with silvery bellies, head downstream to the St. Lawrence, onward to the ocean, where they swim deep towards the Sargasso Sea, thousands of kilometers away. In the remainder of this video, I will provide a behind-the-scenes look at the production of flow. After acquiring a 4x8 foot of PETG plastic, I cut it to size by trimming the width to 38 inches. The first step was to prepare the drawing. Working on my dining room table, I copied my preliminary drawing onto the 96 by 38 inch plate with a Sharpie pen. The eels are rendered at more or less their actual relative sizes, with the smaller yellow eels pointing one way and the large eels pointing the other way to signify recruitment and escapement, respectively. I used Aqua carborundum gel, a gritty substance made up in various dilutions. The application of carborundum gel defines the form and can produce a variety of tonal and textural effects. I ended up using multiple coats to get the texture I wanted. Once the carborundum gel was thoroughly dry, I transported everything to a large open space to print, in my case the garage floor covered with a tarp. To render the existential fragility of this species, I employ the ephemeral qualities of lightweight Japanese shoji paper made with mulberry fibers. I taped the shoji to the plate along one edge as a simple registration system that would allow me to print multiple layers with limited distortion. I had determined to use a somewhat naturalistic color scheme. I used 4 Aqua inks: ultramarine blue, its complement burnt sienna and earthy burnt orange, yellow ochre, and metallic gold. Mixing ultramarine blue and burnt sienna gave me a subtle black for the large eels. For the yellow eels, I used a mix of yellow ochre and metallic gold with a touch of burnt sienna. I use brayers and sometimes brushes to apply the ink and use rags to sharpen the edges. I flipped the paper onto the plate and applied pressure to transfer the ink with my hand, the pin press, and a baren. I repeatedly inked my plate and printed. Once the eels were printed, I used monotype printing techniques to transfer a watery blue onto the paper. I found the resulting images less vibrant than I had envisioned, so in the end I enhanced the print with frottage using color sticks, ink highlights, and chincolle. I turned the edges under and secured them with nori paste. I mounted the panel using a wooden hanging assembly and hung it. The work was completed August 20th, 2022. In conclusion, the American eel is indeed an enigmatic animal. So much so, it might pass into oblivion and not even be missed by most Canadians. Despite never having encountered an American eel in the wild, I have developed a profound appreciation for this remarkable and now threatened creature. I hope through my art practice that I can help generate public awareness of the threats facing the American eel and to challenge us all to save this species from extinction. Thanks for watching and thanks for caring.